Okay, now I think it's time to listen from Linda. As Samson said, the second the second S is stress. Okay, so we are all stressful, and so could Linda shed some light on this issue? How do we support student was really under stress? Maybe immediate some support, or maybe some more long-term things that they could do. Yeah, Linda, over to you, please.
I prepare a PowerPoint.
Okay, good. Thank you so much. Okay.
Let me show you the slides.
Okay, thank you.
Right. So thank you for giving me this chance to share with you. So I want to focus on the psychological impact for students given all the disruptions of studies in the past 1 year. So not just about COVID-19, but also the social unrest and all the other disruptions on campus. What we observed is that we all face multiple challenges, and it's not just related to intellectual studies, but also physical threats, emotional and mental health that Samson mentioned and highlighted, environmental, financial, or even social and spiritual. And when we talk about stress, most of us would focus on the negative side, that how it affect our health and mental health. And we have this concept thinking, oh, it's only the negative things can cause stress. But actually, from a very old studies, which still held true, is that many of the positive events that induce changes can lead to stress. From this table, you can see the blue highlights marriage, pregnancy. They're supposed to be happy things, vacation, this sort of things. In general, we think they should be positive stuff, but then it can also create stress. Online learning, we heard from a lot of students telling us how they adjust to online learnings, and it's I'm happy to hear what the students and other colleagues share. They are both good or bad thing, or and the pros and cons on online learning. I guess the increased sense of control, the autonomy, and a reduction of face-to-face social demands can reduce a lot of anxieties among some students. So I think it's important to look into different things more objectively and see a balanced view. Of course, physical health, when it's in danger, it also affects our mental health and vice versa. And these can create a lot of fears and anxieties. Some students are more vulnerable, and in counseling and psychological support, we are more concerned about this group of students. Those with maladaptive copings, like they more erred on gaming, long time spending on internet, sleeping, avoiding, or even alcohol, drugs, that sort of things. And some students with the pre-existing conditions, let's say they have depression or mental illnesses before the beginning of the COVID, or before the whole social political situation changes, then they are more vulnerable. Those loner without social support are not very good in connecting with others, and those have a stronger and more long-lasting sense of hopelessness. So they are also those that we would like to give more support and attention. And something that made us as a clinician worried is the repeated exposures to different traumatic incidents. So violent scenes, and also repeated news about death, that kind of input could be debilitating if you cannot digest it well. So at HKU, we offer reasonable accommodation or reasonable adjustment to students who need some alterations on the program or on the assessment. But these reasonable accommodations basically helping students to actualize their potentials. So the standards are not compromised, and it would not give advantage to any students. But these create some flexibility and that are acceptable and that are reasonable, so that the students can still demonstrate their competence. Most of the time, these students would come to us and get assessment, or they go to a doctor and get assessment, so as to prove that they do need some adjustment on that. I'd like to talk a little bit about the roles of both teachers and students under this challenging environment and situation. Actually, keeping on the study and classes helps a lot in these situations, because you are helping students, or you are helping yourself to keep a routine, which is very useful when there are significant changes or challenges out there. And this also gives us a legitimate and constructive reasons to focus on something else. Say if you're very distressed about, say, the societal social unrest, or about all the news coming up about COVID-19, then okay, it's time for lessons, and then it gives you this very good reason to distract yourself from all those very negative information. And it also helps students to facilitate and moving on in their academic life. And I think in academic advising, the most important part and most valuable part would be the listening and understanding from a teacher to the students. And it's also a good exchange between us to know what the student needs. So what we heard from students, here are some that I summarize some of the points that they think teacher may help students to go through the disruptions better. So first of all is to try to estimate the time for the task, especially for those tasks that you have changed the format of assessment. Because we did heard of some cases, the change of assessment from a final exam into 3 essays. So some students initially need to write 2 or 3 essays in one semester, but in the end, some courses change into essay writing or assignments, and then end up with having 9 essays to write in a semester, which can be very traumatic. And give ample time for students to prepare if you change certain things. And it's very important to keep the consistency, because when students are dealing with a lot of changes, they would appreciate there are some consistency that they can ground themselves or to follow. And I think it's so important to minimize or try to avoid further changes after class, because I heard some students very anxious checking emails because they don't know when the teacher will announce certain changes. So they are pretty panic and start being a bit obsessive about checking emails all the time. But in the past, they got all these announcements in class. And useful to allow time for questions and feedback, which I think you have mentioned it already. So for those who are facing major changes, I think advisor and supervisee try to do problem solving together, and it's so important to look ahead to give them the hope, and while there's still changes we need to face. Well, psychologically, we start at my session, we start to post out some of the questions to students to think about, as sort of like the COVID-19 have been for some time, and we would like to stock take a little bit psychologically how we can stock up some of the resources of good learning, and so as to help us to move on. So we have posted out the first one on IG. So we would like students to think about who have helped you or helped your community. Would you like to thank them? Other questions would be important, like, have you learned any new things? Are there any personal beliefs that you have reinforced and to support you to go through difficult times? Are there anything you appreciate more? For example, some students told us they appreciate much more about the face-to-face human contact. Yeah, and they are so eager to come back to have the face-to-face counseling sessions. They do sense the difference. So at my team, we focus on counseling and SEN support. After COVID-19, we immediately contact all our cases right after the Chinese New Year. And we keep very close contact with them, including those students who are not in Hong Kong or those in quarantine. And we keep the counseling pretty flexible because we have to reduce the face-to-face. So we offer e-counseling. We also provide tele-support. And so students who need our assistance, they can simply email or call us, and we can do it over the phone. We'll try our best. Of course, for some cases, due to ethical reason, and for those who with risk, we have to make arrangements to ask them to come back to our office to actually having the face-to-face assessment. So the e-counseling and tele-support is still going on. So all students, we will keep this pretty flexible, I guess, in this year. Yeah, and we continue with emergency walk-in and screening. So basically, we only stop services for 2 days after Chinese New Year. For other office hour, we're still opening for students because we think students do need our help and support. And we try to review the needs for students with ASEAN to see whether they need to adjust the reasonable accommodation for their online learning and assessment, etc. And we also deal with a lot of distress related to students who are isolating themselves in the family, especially those with chronic family conflicts. This period of time could be very challenging to them as well. Yeah, so different routes students can reach us, and then for SEN support, we support students not just those with physical and sensory disabilities, but we have expanded to learning developmental disabilities, mental illnesses, etc. And our case manager take care of students who have registered to our services. Mental health still a big challenge to us, and also knowing the reduction of face-to-face contact, we have made use of the internet and different media to promote self-help information. You can find them out in our IG, Facebook, or website. And we also start some person enrichment workshops in Zoom, and it's very popular. To our surprise, we initially thought students have enough Zoom, but actually they love it. Yeah, they're all oversubscribed, all the workshops. And we're still promoting peer support, and we thank so much that the staff are reaching out to students. And I just want to reassure all of you that we have a multidisciplinary input and support to back up all the students and staff. In the upper part, it are the professionals we have at Hong Kong U, mostly in my team. We have clinical psychologists, counselors, educational psychologists. At the UHS, we have GP, and we have experienced student advising officer, and we also have some external funding. You can see the orange highlights, audiologists, speech therapists, and occupational therapists under project to give us advice. We also work very closely with different community partners to offer support to students. One update, a new announcement, starting from mid-July, we will pilot a service with the Department of Psychiatry. They will send psychiatrists to to my section and also to University Health Service for a few hours each week, so as to provide psychiatric consultations to students. And this is a very good news because usually psychiatric support can be pretty remote, and students need to overcome a lot of hurdles to get that specialized advice. But we hope that by piloting this new scheme, we can have more accessible support at this site. Staff, I think many of you have gone through the mental health first aid training. Given all the trauma that had happened all over the world, we are organizing psychological first aid. We have started a few pilot courses for students and one for staff in the hall, but we are planning to have some in the future also for teaching and administrative staff. And it's a different approach. I hope in future I will have a chance to share more with you. And we still have the information sessions and some joint care staff training. For those who would like some handy information, you can go to our website, and you can see at the top right-hand corner at the toolbar, you see staff helping students. We put some useful information there, and we are working on a guide for staff on how to support students with mental health issues and disabilities. And we're working hard on it. We definitely publicize it to all of you once it's ready. So that's all.
Okay, thank you so much, Linda. It's extremely useful. All the insight as well as the very good news about the new scheme, as well as the guide to advisors on supporting students who have psychological needs. Okay, so very good. So do any participants have any questions that we would like to ask our speakers? Okay. Right, okay. So I guess while you are thinking, maybe let me just do a very quick recap of what I personally, got from all those sharing as well as observation, and what advisors could maybe pay more attention to in the coming academic year because of all those uncertainties that's still going on. Okay, so it appears to me what's impressed me is that the willingness to reach out, not only once, but twice to your advisee, so that they could appreciate that you really care about them and the concern that you have for them. So also by sharing your story, it could also help your advisee to open up. Okay, so I think that's very important to understand, for you to understand what's going on really over their side. And the second thing that I would take away is the reassurance. So reassure your advisees that this is difficult and this is normal to feel upset or not confident. So reassure them that it's okay to have those feelings, but at the same time, appreciate them for coming forward to seek help. Okay, and also a few reminders that I find very useful personally is to focus on your advisee's strengths, which sometimes they would overlook during the times of really stressful period. Okay, the strengths that they have and the good qualities they have and the successes that they have in the past would all become their resources to go forward. See the positive side of things, like online teaching have some positive side. So let them not only see the negative side, but also see the positive side and how to turn those positive aspects into their advantage. Okay, so yeah, and also about Zoom advising, like Linda, we also found students kind of like having Zoom contact. So because for AAO, we've been having now more Zoom advising than telephone or email or phone advising. So I guess if you open this up to your advisee, they would find it really helpful. Okay, and one last point about Samson. Samson mentioned that you offered your WhatsApp to some students. Actually, we are looking into setting up something for for advisors to stay in touch with your advisee, like instant messaging. Okay. Now, instead of using your personal WhatsApp, AAO is looking into using the instant messaging function on Zoom as well as Teams, which students are very familiar with. Okay, so shortly we will be compiling some instruction for faculty advisors and student advisors to use it to communicate and stay in touch with your advisees. Okay, so so that's all for today, and thank you, all of you. We have totally 31 participants today with us. So thank you all for your time joining us. And then now we have an evaluation that's been just sent out in the chat box. So we would really appreciate you to take 1 minute to give us some feedback so that in the coming semester, when we are planning more workshop, we could have more ideas to work on. All right, so thank you all for joining, and I look forward to having you again in our future workshop. Thank you all. Okay, bye-bye.